What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to be discussing calorie manipulation and macronutrient ratios to help you melt your fat away and also promote muscle growth, because your dream physique is based on losing fat and increasing your muscle mass. That's what's going to give you your lean and toned physique. And in order to get that lean and toned physique, you need to fuel yourself to do so. So it's not going to happen by starving yourself into your dream physique or anything of that nature, overtraining, undereating, whatever the case may be. And I'm saying that because that's what I used to struggle with, on top of a plethora of other things, including binge eating and all these other things, which will be discussed in the video. I want to remind you guys that do hard shit and be confident. Have the courage to be uncomfortable, but most importantly, don't give a shit what anybody says about you. I just finished training, so I don't really actually have a pump. I hit legs though. You guys can't even see me. I don't know. It's very bright, can't see the camera, but we're going to go ahead and hop over to my computer where I'm going to be discussing, like I already said, calorie manipulation and macro ratios to help you melt fat away and also increase your muscle mass. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, all those things so that more people can see this video and not only lose fat and build muscle, but also join me on my summer shredding series, because I am starting that because summer is just around the corner. So I hope that you guys are going to do that with me. In order to get you guys to do that with me, I'm going to make as many videos as possible to help you get more knowledge so you can do this yourself. I love you guys so much. Let's go ahead and go to my computer now. What's going on, guys? I now have y'all on my computer. As y'all already know, today we're going to be discussing calorie manipulation as well as macronutrient ratios in order to help stimulate fat loss as well as promote muscle growth, because those two things occurring concurrently is what's going to yield you your dream physique. Let's go ahead and get into this chart that I have built here. I want to preface this video before I jump into everything. It's probably going to be a bit of a longer video. I'm going to sort of connect all the dots because I know sometimes, especially my summer shredding series that I'm posting as I get ready to lean out for summer, or I'm already leaning out for summer, but I'm encouraging you guys to come along and do this with me. And in doing so, I realize that in these videos, sometimes I mention things like carb cycling, or I say I'm going to eat this or I'm going to do this, and I don't really connect all the dots. I know I've also made other videos about nutrition where I talk about this, but in this video, I'm going to connect every single thing. And the first thing that we're going to discuss is calorie manipulation and macronutrient ratios, because that's about 80% of this journey. When you manipulate what you eat, your nutrients, the deficit that you're going to be in, most likely, you'll be able to then manipulate your body composition. So no matter what your journey is, whether it be fat loss, muscle gain, weight gain, whatever it is, even if you're bulking, cutting, anything is some form of a body recomposition journey, because you're recompositioning your body, the relation of how much fat mass you carry versus how much lean mass you carry. So people will be like, oh, should I body recomp, or should I cut, or should I do this? Anything where you are altering the composition of your body is a body recomposition journey. I don't care if you're 300 pounds, but the direction of that body recomposition is weight loss or muscle gain or whatever. But no matter what you do, you are recompositioning your body. So in order to alter the composition of your current state, you need to alter what you eat, so the amount of it, or more, less, whatever, and what lies within that, the macronutrient ratios. So before we get into discussing nutrients and all the other things that we're going to discuss, because this is not just the only part of the video, this is just like the first part, I want to talk about body composition and your dream physique. Now, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that your dream physique is just going to be based on eating less, and that's it, and probably doing a lot of cardio and maybe overtraining and eating damn near nothing. The people that you see where you're like, oh, I want to look like that, or I want to look a certain way, I want to look lean and toned and a bit muscular, super muscular, or maybe just a beach body, or maybe you want to have washboard abs, or maybe you just want to have stomach definition. Whatever it is, all the people that look like that and you're like, oh, I want to look like that, I promise you, they don't starve themselves to look like that. It's built. What it is that they have, that physique, is built, and it's also something that you have to be willing to be patient for. It's not something that is going to happen overnight. And the people that you see that go on these like 12-week shreds and they look great and they're able to cut all this weight and stuff like that, they've most likely spent time building muscle mass. Maybe it was 1 to 2 years, maybe it was a few months. Regardless, they have muscle mass. If you have minimal muscle mass, it's going to be very hard for you not only to get to that level of leanness that you're looking for, but also maintain it. When you have more muscle mass, you're therefore increasing your metabolism. So your resting metabolism is going to be higher because you carry more muscle mass. You're still going to appear lean and toned, but because you have more muscle mass, you'll be able to eat more at that level. Whereas if you have minimal muscle mass and you're trying to cut, you're starting from a lower metabolism because you don't have as much muscle. So realistically, as you cut down more and more to achieve that level of leanness, it's going to be much more difficult because you don't have as much room or as much leeway due to the lack of muscle mass. Also, when you focus so much on leaning out and eating nothing at the beginning of your journey, your body is not in the prime conditions to put on muscle mass. So yes, it may seem like in a 12-week period, you're shredding and you're cutting weight and the scale's dropping, But in the longevity period, or the long time horizon, you're actually slowing yourself down. So putting your head down and working and understanding that you just have to be patient is the number one thing that you're going to want to understand to make this journey efficient in terms of a longer time horizon instead of just a 12-week shred. And then when you try to just focus on being lean from the very beginning, 9 times out of 10 you end up skinny fat and burnt out from trying to lean out because you don't have muscle mass to even show for when the fat is off. And because you don't have that muscle mass, you basically have to eat like nothing to stay at that level of leanness. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? If not, drop in the comments down below and I will personally message you. Or DM me on Instagram, because that will also be linked at the beginning, or in the description of this video, not the beginning of this video. What the fuck am I saying? Sorry about that. So I wanted to highlight that before we get into talking about nutrition and all the other 20% of things that we're going to look at after we talk about nutrition, since it is 80%, before we get into the video. So we discussed composition and that your dream physique is not what you starve yourself into, but it's something that you build. It's something that you fuel for. Yes, you may have to be in a deficit, but a deficit is still not starving yourself, especially when you manipulate your calories correctly and your macronutrient ratios are where they're supposed to be. All right, so the first thing that we're going to discuss after we I'm sorry if I keep messing with my hair. I just worked out, and it's very hot today, so I'm like kind of sweaty. Let's discuss fat loss first. So obviously 9 times out of 10, majority of people that come to me are on some sort of fat loss journey when it comes to their recompositioning of their body. Why would we want to see fat loss? I think 99% of America wants to see fat loss. When you lose body fat, you increase your muscularity. So the muscles that you do have are able to be seen more and they're more defined. If you don't have much muscle, still it's going to be better for your overall health and wellness. And then while you're losing that fat, you can also prioritize building muscle at the same time so they can eventually converge and you can reach that level of leanness that you're looking for. How to do so? Well, we'll need to be in a calorie deficit. The reason that we need to be in a calorie deficit is so that our body is forced to burn what we have stored on us to make up for that deficit. For example, let's say your normal metabolic rate with what you're currently already doing every single day with no changes is 2,000 calories. And you put yourself in a calorie deficit of 1,500 calories, which is a bit steep, but let's say that's what you do. In order for your body to maintain those levels of operating at a 2,000 calorie level, it would need to make up for that 500 calorie difference between the two numbers with what is currently stored on you. So that is how fat loss or weight loss occurs, is when you put yourself in that state of a calorie deficit or a caloric deficit of what your maintenance is, and your body is then forced to make up that difference that you've created between your intake with what is currently stored on it. Fat loss is different than weight loss, however, because weight loss could indicate maybe muscle growth or muscle loss is also occurring along with fat loss. In order to make sure that it's fat loss, we need to make sure that we manipulate our macronutrients within that deficit and prioritize our protein so that we can increase and maintain the muscle mass that we currently do have, and then pairing that with lifting and resistance training, progressive overloading. So putting ourselves in a deficit and prioritizing protein is going to make sure that majority of what we're losing is going to be fat and not muscle. Whereas if we just eat less and we don't really look at our protein, our carbs, and our fats, and we don't look at those ratios, we're just going to be seeing the scale drop. Are we going to be looking any better? Is our composition going to be improving? No, it's not, especially if we don't have those things in check. So there's a little bit more detail, strategy, and structure that needs to be put into this in order to make sure that we maintain the muscle mass and that fat is being lost and not just overall weight. In order for you to ensure that fat loss is occurring and not just weight loss, is don't just look at the scale. Now, yes, ideally you want the scale to be dropping, but that's not always the case. It's very dependent on the person. So when you're looking at the scale and you're seeing that it's dropping, make sure that you're pairing this with keeping track of your composition photos. So if the scale isn't dropping, but your composition is significantly improving week in, week out, you're putting on muscle and you're losing fat. Now, muscle growth occurs at a much slower rate than fat loss will occur. Fat loss in comparison to muscle growth will occur much more rapidly than muscle growth will. It takes a lot of work and effort and proper nutrition to build muscle. Fat loss is much easier to occur so long as you're prioritizing protein and in a calorie deficit. So we've discussed these. Now we will discuss muscle growth. So this one is a little bit trickier. That's why the why is there. A lot of people will be like, oh, I want to look lean and toned, and they will prioritize fat loss a little too much, and they really won't prioritize muscle growth, when in reality, fat loss is like a plus. It's like, great, good, awesome. At the beginning, especially when you're lacking in lean mass, you want to prioritize putting that at the forefront for the reasons that I just mentioned when I was discussing your body composition and your dream physique. In order to focus on muscle growth, we need to make sure that, again, we manipulate our nutrients within our calorie deficit, and then we also have the proper calorie ratios, macronutrient ratios within that deficit as well. So when looking at muscle growth, why? Well, like I already said, when you build more muscle, you have more muscle on you, your metabolism is increased. So your metabolism is increased, which means that you can eat more at whatever body fat mass to lean mass you're at, and also appear to look lean and toned because you're fueling muscle, which is more compact than obviously body fat would be. So someone who weighs 160 pounds of more lean mass than fat mass versus someone who weighs 160 pounds of more fat mass and less lean mass are going to be able to have the same amount of food to eat for the most part, but one of them is going to look as if they weigh probably 20 to 30 pounds lighter. That is, as I'm trying to explain it in a simple term that's easy for you, not simple term, in a simple example that's easy for you to digest. So that is why we want to prioritize muscle growth. Also, you're not going to accidentally pick up the dumbbell and become the Rock. You're not going to accidentally become bulky and manly and whatever. Your lean toned look, even if you just want to tone out or be lean, is still going to be something that is a byproduct of muscle growth or an increase in your muscle mass. So whether you want to be a bodybuilder or you want to be some jacked person, or if you just want to be lean and toned, muscle mass or muscle growth still needs to be prioritized. Now, how do we do this? Like I just mentioned, prioritizing protein to keep your muscle mass while you're focusing on fat loss, but also prioritizing protein to make sure that you're increasing muscle and that your muscle is able to grow, because in order for your muscle to grow, it needs to have protein. But something that I want to highlight with muscle growth that's going to help, that's not just hit your protein goal, is also nutrient timing and regulating your carbs and fats. Carbs and fats obviously aren't going to directly cause muscle growth in the process of, increasing your muscle mass. However, they do indirectly increase your muscle mass because when utilized properly, those carbs and fats can give you more energy in the gym, help you train in the fashion necessary to increase your muscle mass. So no, carbs and fats aren't going to directly yield to your body utilizing those two nutrients in order to increase your muscle mass. However, when your body utilizes carbs and fats to give you more energy, you can then train harder. When you train harder, you're able to grow faster in the gym. So if you're eating like shit and you're not prioritizing your protein and you're not placing your meals with carbs and fats strategically, you're going to see less muscle growth than if you were to just strategically place those things and eat them to fuel that growth. You'll get more results, but not necessarily more effort is going to be put in. Right? So if you just build a bit of a more efficient plan, you'll still give in the same amount of effort, yet your plan is going to be better or your engine is going to be better, so it's going to yield more output. I've already said this in a previous video, but imagine you have two engines. You have a Honda Civic and you have a truck, and one of them is just going to be the amount of gas per, amount of distance you can travel. That's going to be the efficiency indicator. Obviously, if you have a Honda Civic, you're going to put in, it's going to cost less, you're going to get further, and you're not going to be breaking the bank. Whereas if you have a truck, you're going to be guzzling gas and you're not going to be able to go as far, and it's going to be less cost effective. Think about those engines as your plan here, and the further you can go for the less amount of money is going to be, the winner. You want this engine or, why did I just do that? This plan to be, I'll just circle it. This plan to be as efficient or effective as possible so you can put in least amount of effort, so the least amount of money to get further. Right? So if you can put $20 in a Honda Civic and $20 in a truck, and that $20 is going to take you much further in the Civic than the truck, you're going to be wanting to operate the Civic. Therefore, in this case scenario, you're going to want this engine to be that, like the Civic. Does the Civic have a truck bed? No. Is the Civic going to be able to tow shit? No. But that's not what we're looking at here. We're not looking at that as an indicator of efficiency. I said the further you can go for the least dollar amount is what's going to be the indicator of efficiency. So that's kind of what I'm trying to insinuate with this example. So fat loss obviously is going to be important so that, number one, you can see more of your muscle. If you don't have muscle, then you can build that at the same time as you're losing fat. And also it's just going to be better for your overall health and wellness. You're going to be more athletic. You're not going to be huffing and puffing trying to perform daily tasks. You're going to be able to perform better in the gym because you're more athletic. You probably have better endurance, and that's going to help with muscle growth. So that's why it's important to make sure that we're focusing on fat loss, not just to see more of our muscles, but also to make sure that we're overall healthier, to improve our endurance so that we can perform like an athlete in the gym. When we can perform like an athlete, muscle growth will come much easier. And in order to do so, we're going to be in a calorie deficit. And in order to make sure that we're losing fat and not muscle mass, we're going to prioritize our protein. when we're looking at muscle growth, we want to make sure that we are not only prioritizing our protein to make sure that our body's able to build muscle, but also utilizing carbs and fats to fuel us in the gym and make sure that we can train appropriately and with the intensity necessary to see and stimulate that muscle growth that we're looking for. It is not gonna be easy to grow muscle. You have to go into the gym with a plan and be intentional and push yourself. It has to be heavy, it has to be hard, it has to be difficult. It is so easy to cheat yourself out of what you could have had because it's gonna be the same hour in the gym, right? You might as well make it fucking count. And when you go in there and you are lifting the same weight week in and week out, and you're not doing anything, you're not challenging yourself, it's not difficult, you're not going to grow. And this is for any aspect of life. You're not going to fucking grow if you don't challenge yourself. And no one's going to be able to tell if you're truly being challenged. I can go out there and start squatting and be like, oh, I'm about to fail. Only I know if I could do another one or if I'm going to fail or not. It's very hard to externally be able to judge if someone is truly pushing themselves. And that is either a blessing or a curse, depending on you, really. Right? It's really only something that you can do for yourself. Like when I'm coaching people and I have my clients, I can't go there and force them to be within 0 to 3 reps of failure. I can tell them that's going to yield them the most growth. Can I make them do it? No, because it's fucking hard. I don't care if you know it works, if you don't know it works. When I go out there and I lift, my lifts are still fucking difficult. They're still hard. And it's very easy to cheat yourself out of it. You got to be cognizant. You got to be intentional. And in order to help you be intentional and push yourself and give yourself that edge, we utilize carbs and fats to give us that burst of energy. That way we can push harder. If you go and you work out fasted with no fuel in you, you're going to be lethargic. You're going to be tired. You're going to crash. You're going to be reluctant to push yourself. Whereas if you go and you understand your digestion window and you eat the amount of carbs and fats that make you feel best or perform best, which is only done through trial and error and testing, which is what I do for my clients, we'll implement a pre-workout meal. We'll see how they feel. If they tell me, okay, I'm like crashing around this time, I'll implement a little bit more fats to give them more of a longer lasting energy source. And then they'll tell me, oh, well, I'm feeling a little bit tired now, like I'm feeling a little bit sluggish. So then I'll cut back on the fats. Some clients need minimal fats, some need a little bit more. Some like quick digesting carbs, some like a little bit slower digesting carbs, depending on when they eat breakfast relative to when they're going to work out. It's something that you only learn through trial and error, not only for your schedule and your lifestyle, but also how your body operates. Does your body digest this in X amount of time window where you're able to feel this during your workout, or do you need to substitute with something else? These are only things that we learn through reviewing data week in and week out, primarily in the first few weeks of when they work with me. Now let's talk about macro ratios and calorie manipulation. So macro ratios is going to come first. And also, wait, one thing I want to preface first is that what I talked about with muscle growth right here, I didn't really touch on training because a lot of this is going to be about nutrients and what you eat. In order to make sure that your body has what it needs to have that muscle growth, we're going to use food. In order to make sure that what you're putting in your body is being utilized to grow muscle is going to be used or discussed later in this video when I get into the other 20% of getting your dream physique. So right now we're just talking about food. So I will highlight on the gym a little bit more later on. Next, we're going to talk about macro ratios. Now, this kind of ties into the whole weight loss thing where it's like people just say, oh, just eat less and the scale will drop. Yes. But the scale dropping and your dream body are not the same thing. Your dream body realistically could weigh more than you weigh right now so long as you're not obese. I know that a lot of people tend to say these absolutes like, oh, eat less, weigh less, you'll get smaller. Yes. And I know that they have good intention of just making this simple and easy to digest because half the time the reason why people struggle so much is because this is a lot of fucking information and it's hard to understand. However, it can be a bit misleading when you think that you're going to pop out with abs and muscular and lean and toned just by eating less. When really, yes, you eat less by definition because you're in a caloric deficit, but the macronutrient ratios within that deficit will dictate a wildly different composition depending on what those sit at. So yes, I said making sure that you're prioritizing your protein. If you don't know where to start with protein, you can aim for a gram per pound of your current body weight or your goal body weight if you do have a lot of excess body fat or you're starting pretty far behind the starting line. However, that is going to be the most important thing is prioritizing protein. Carbs and fats I put under protein because like I said, we're utilizing those for efficiency and energy in the gym and making sure that we are fueled. So they're going to be indirectly helping us build muscle. That's why they're under protein and they're next to each other. And this is also something that you can play around with, right? So a couple things to know with carbs and fats is carbs are going to be quicker digesting, whereas fats are going to be a little bit of a longer digesting energy source, going to give you a little bit more sustained energy. The ratios that I give my clients and that I even give myself are solely dependent on them and how they're feeling. If you give someone too much fats, they could feel like they need to take a nap in the middle of the day, or they could feel tired during their workout. Whereas if you don't give them enough, they could crash. And they could, like those, you give them a bunch of quick digesting carbs, they go work out, they're feeling great for the first couple of exercises, but because their meal was so low in fat in the morning, they start crashing. So in that sense, you implement 5 to 10 grams of fat and then evaluate how they feel after that implementation. Then you kind of just see. So that you have to play around with your digestion, the window of time you give yourself before your training. And this is all very detailed. That's again why it's under protein. If you're struggling, this is a lot of information. Just focus on protein and then fill out the carbs and fats for the rest of your deficit. But if you want to get better results, and if you're someone who's already been lifting and you're having trouble breaking through a plateau, and you're not someone who's starting behind the starting line or at day one, then you can start getting into that more detailed aspect of regulating your carbs and fats and nutrient timing in relation to your workout and other things that you have planned in your day, right? If you have a busy day ahead of you, don't have a fuck ton of fats because, like I just said, you're probably going to feel like you need to take a nap in the middle of the workday. So those are things that you can look at when trying to adjust your macronutrient ratios. However, protein should be at the forefront. So if you want to just take it this far and stop here, you will definitely get some good results there so long as you're in a deficit, because still your body will need to be forced to burn the difference between your metabolic rate or your current metabolic rate and the number of calories that you're eating that's under that. So if the difference is 300, you prioritize your protein and you're still eating that number, your body's going to be forced to burn or make the difference off of what you're currently storing. However, when you understand how carbs and fats affect your body, how they digest, and what they can be used for, if you do decide to get into using them, they can make your results just a little bit better, and they can make your journey a little bit easier by making sure that you have energy at proper times and making sure that the energy lasts and that you're feeling good and you make it to the gym. So for example, if you know that fats in excess will make you tired and you have a high fat meal and you're just focused on protein, and let's say you have like a super fatty steak that's super high in protein but also high in fat before you go to the gym, you're going to feel sluggish, you're going to feel lethargic, and maybe you'd skip your workout because you're tired and you want to take a nap and you're going to be reluctant to go. So you can see how that can affect you indirectly, and indirectly affect not just your muscle growth but also your fat loss. All things to think about and consider. But again, if you're starting or at the beginning, just look at protein and then fill the rest of your deficit with carbs and fats. But if you're a seasoned lifter and you're having trouble breaking through a plateau, or you're not getting to that level of leanness you want to achieve, look at these things. All right, we've discussed macro ratios. Now let's talk about calorie manipulation. So obviously you're going to be in a calorie deficit for fat loss, which I've kind of said about 1,000 million times in this video. However, in order to get the most bang for your buck with that deficit, because you can be in a deficit and starving, you can be in the same deficit and feel super full. You want to make sure that you're eating voluminous foods that essentially the most bites that you can get per meal is going to make you feel more satiated. So in order to make this calorie deficit super efficient and keep you full and keep you from wanting to binge or stray away from it, we can look at a few things here. So I implement carb cycling, and I say that a lot. I tell you guys a little bit of like a summary as to why I implement it, but essentially the carb cycling that I run is just different carb levels on my rest days and my training days. On my rest days, I'll cut carbs to a minimal amount, like let's say under 100 carbs, but I increase my protein to help with satiation, and then I increase my fats to give me more of a longer lasting energy source. Also, because I'm not training that day, I don't have to worry about being super lethargic, but most of my fats are programmed towards the end of the day because, like I said, if you eat fats in excess, they can make you tired and make you lethargic because of the longer digestion window it takes to digest fats versus carbs. It can prime you for bedtime. So that's why I program most of mine at night. Other people can do things differently and add tiers to it. So they have a low carb day, a medium carb day, and then a high carb day. They can do refeeds where they're in extreme deficits, and they have one day out of the week where they eat significantly more. Not only does this can help you. I'm not saying this works for everybody, but not only can this help you adhere to your deficit because you have periods of where you have to be disciplined, you have to be consistent, and you're eating a minimal amount, but then you can have something to look forward to on those high carb days or those refeed days. It also achieves another effect that's not just psychological, but also a metabolic effect. So because you're not digesting the same amount of nutrients every single day, your metabolism has to adjust. Also, because you're not digesting the same amount of nutrients every single day, it gives your digestive system a break. So if you were to be eating X amount every single day, your body has to constantly digest those nutrients. Whereas if you're adjusting what you eat to what you do in that day, your body gets a break. So on your training days, it'll have to work a little bit harder because it's intaking more nutrients. And then on your rest days, it won't have to work as hard because it's intaking significantly less. Also, when you are having days, low carb days, or days where you're eating less, on those refeed days or those high carb days or those days where you're just adding more nutrients, your body will be more sensitive to it because it doesn't have it every day. And when it's more sensitive to it, the energy and the benefits that you get from intaking more nutrients are heightened. So that's why carb cycling, refeeds, no matter how detailed or simple you keep it, that's the gist of what I'm like, the benefits and why I think it's good to implement. You don't have to. You can still achieve weight loss so long as you're in an overall deficit. However, if you get more strategic with it and add a little bit more structure and planning, it can give you better results. It can be easier for you to adhere to, and you'll look better. And it'll be something that's definitely more sustainable than trying to be in a deficit all the damn time or whatever. But I'm not saying that that works for everybody. Again, I'm kind of just telling you, I'm kind of just showing you my toolbox of what I use for my clients, and then where I apply it or when I pull it out of my pocket and, I'm like, I implement this and I implement that is solely dependent on what they describe to me, what I see in their check-ins, the data I review day in and day out. All those kinds of things are what I look at before I just start implementing all these things that I'm telling you. I'm kind of just showing you everything I've got, and then you have to apply it to your situation and not just your physiological attributes, but also your psychological or your behavioral patterns. So carb cycling can also be good in a sense of, people that struggle with, I know that I'm I know that carb cycling is beneficial for me because I'm a binge eater at heart. I've struggled with it throughout my entire fitness journey. And so being able to be disciplined for 2 to 3 days out of the week and then knowing that I get my refeed where I can feel that satiation, I can feel full, I can feel satisfied. I don't feel like I have to be constantly restricted, whether it be a few times a week, one day out of the week, depending on how I tier my carb cycling. That is when I would apply that. And that's why it works well with me. Everything I'm saying here, take it with a grain of salt. I'm trying to tell you when I would apply it so that if it sounds like you can apply it for yourself. But this will require a little bit of critical thinking on your end, just because I, number one, don't really know your situation. And number two, I'm not speaking to anyone directly. I'm kind of just showing you everything that I've got and telling you things that I implement for people when they say X, Y, and Z, or when I notice X, Y, and Z pattern in their check-ins or in their data that they submit to me. That's kind of how it works. All right, let's talk about nutrient timing. Now, earlier in this video, I discussed muscle growth and how carbs and fats are indirectly helping with your body or with helping you put on more lean muscle mass. That is also going to, or that concept that I mentioned is going to have a lot to do with nutrient timing. Nutrient timing is simply strategizing when you're going to eat certain carbs, fats, and proteins because of what you're doing in your day and your schedule based on how your body digests them, and what your goals are. So, nutrient timing, for example, let's say you're going to wake up in the morning and you have maybe a 30-minute window before you lift. So you're going to want to have a bit of a quick digesting carb, maybe 5 to 10 grams of fat to prevent any crashes from happening, because with those quick digesting carbs, you tend to be more susceptible to a crash or an energy tank. In order to kind of negate that or combat that, we'll implement 5 to 10 grams of fat so that you have more of a sustained energy source for when those carbs digest quickly and that energy starts to come down. If you have maybe a longer time window, so you wake up an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on your digestion before your workout, and that's when you're going to have your meal, and you have an hour and a half to 2 hour window, maybe you'll take a slower digesting carb instead of having something that's going to digest within 30 to 45 minutes. Those are things that you look at, and when you look at your schedule in the day, your lifestyle, you can then understand when to time those nutrients so that the energy hits when it's supposed to, so that everything is operating smoothly, right? Whereas if we just eat random shit whenever the fuck, you know what I mean? There's no method to the madness. And yes, like I said, if you're at the beginning of your journey and this is a lot of information, calorie deficit for fat loss, you can stop right there. Boom. That's all you need. Calorie deficit for fat loss. However, if you are past that point and you're a seasoned lifter and you have a couple years of experience or whatever, and you're having trouble figuring all this stuff out, you can go a couple tiers lower and add more of these details that I'm telling you. So, and again, for my clients, all of them come to me, either they're seasoned lifters and they're having trouble breaking through a plateau and they're already, They already go to the gym, they just need help reaching ascension or getting to that next level, or it's their first day in the gym and they've never been and they're just now getting a membership. Regardless of where they're at in the journey, since I'm handling most of this for them, like every single thing here that I implement just on my own, because that is the general client protocol that I have that's then tweaked and tailored to each individual. That's why that is a different case. But if you're doing this on your own, I know a lot of this information can be overwhelming to you. So if you want to stop right here and it's your first day in the gym, that will still yield you results. You will eventually, though, hit a plateau in which then you can start implementing these details down here at the bottom. But let's go back to talking about nutrient timing. So like I said, you can utilize carbs and fats to give you energy in the gym. You can also utilize them to help promote proper rest and recovery. So when you work out in the gym, you're burning through those glycogen storages in which those carbs are stored. Because you're burning through them and they're then empty, you're going to want to replenish them so you're not starving and so that your body can properly rest and recover in order to have the most efficient time building muscle. After you work out, you're going to want to make sure that you eat protein to build muscle. Now, I know a lot of people think that within 20 seconds of setting your dumbbell down, you need to get some protein down the hatchet. The hatchet? Which one is it? A hatchet is a miniature axe, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm going to call it the hatch, down the hatch. The window for getting your protein in post-workout is a lot larger than you think. And there's no limit to the amount of protein that you can have in one meal. So people saying that you need to space up your protein because your body can't metabolize X amount is not true. But post-workout, you want to make sure that you're having your carbs, you have a protein that's, if you can, a little bit lower in fat so that it digests quicker, because fats digest a little bit longer, and ideally you'd want to get it in there as fast as possible. However, the window is a lot larger than one may think. So protein that's low in fat, maybe chicken breast, tilapia, shrimp, something of that nature. And also because you have the rest of the day, if you're working out in the middle of the day or whatever, you don't want to overload your body with fats because, like I said, about 1,000 times in this presentation, they tend to make you a bit lethargic. And then replenishing the glycogen storages that you just burned through by eating some more carbs. Now, whenever I implement carb cycling or eat carbs at all, especially my training days, I center them around my workout, so pre and post workout, because that's when it's going to be most efficiently utilized in your body to promote muscle growth and stimulate fat loss. Now, let's get into the second part of this presentation where I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to show you some examples with my clients. So I have some example clients here that are implementing some form of carb cycling and a lot of the nutritional principles that I just mentioned to you guys up there. Now, some of them may not even know that they're doing this because I handle a lot of things for them. And a couple clients here, we talk on the daily and they give me a lot of questions and they want to know why. Whereas others, they just are like, handle this for me, tell me what to eat, and make sure I look good. They fall into different categories. However, all of them here are implementing some, if not all of the nutrient principles that I just mentioned at the top, and all of them are at different phases in the journey. I just wanted to highlight some of these examples here so that if you think that it doesn't work or it's not going to happen or you're not going to get results, here's proof of that. And you can definitely just go look at my YouTube channel or my Instagram and see that I am living, walking proof of all those nutritional principles that I just laid out for you as well. Earlier, though, in the video at the beginning, I mentioned that nutrition was 80% of what it is that we're going to be using to dictate what your body's composition is going to be. So in order to get your dream physique, you need to alter your body composition from where you're currently at. And in order to do so, you need to manipulate your nutrition, manipulate your calories, and make sure that your macronutrient ratios are in check. That's 80% of the battle. Now, let's discuss the other 20%. So let me zoom out here. So we're going to discuss how they applied what we just discussed, plus what they paired it with to get results and keep them. So when getting your dream physique, there are so many different levers you pull to have that efficient engine we were talking about, right? If something isn't working, you're going to be operating inefficiently. So you want to make sure that you're pulling all the levers and that there's no problems, hiccups, or bumps in the road anywhere. When we focus on one lever too much, we'll burn out, we won't get as good of results, and then we tend to develop a poor relationship with that lever, i.e. overtraining, i.e. undereating, i.e. being obsessed with the scale, or whatever, or not getting enough sleep because we don't feel like we're ever doing enough, so we cut our sleep and we train more, probably eat less. You know, we focus too much on one thing that we neglect the other levers and therefore lead us to operating inefficiently. My best way to explain this to you is if there was like a team of like the Rockets or some shit, okay? We've got the Rockets and we've got Jalen Green, right? And he's the only one working. He's trying to win the game versus the other 5 people on the other team. Whereas if we include all the other 4 players, and it's now 5-on-5 instead of just focusing on Jalen Green and him trying to beat the 5 players on the other team, you can start to see how that would be more efficient, right? Tell me I'm wrong. And this is the way that I always try to explain it to other people. If we call Jalen Green a calorie deficit and we just focus on that and we don't do any cardio, we don't increase our activity, we don't train in the gym to increase our muscle mass, we don't get proper sleep, rest, and recovery, we're not drinking enough water. When we neglect the other levers and we just focus on the deficit in and of itself, you can see how we're operating inefficiently. Whereas if we get Jalen Green and the 4 other players, the lifting, the increasing the activity, the doing cardio, and the getting the proper sleep, rest, and recovery, we have all of those working and all of those in check and all of those being monitored, it's going to be much easier to win the game against the other team. Whereas if we just have the point guard trying to win, it's going to be a lot fucking harder. Probably going to lose. Probably going to quit basketball because you're going to be so damn frustrated, right? Think about that, but in terms of fitness. Now, if you don't understand basketball or know nothing about the sport, I might have just overcomplicated that for you. However, I hope that I was able to explain it in a way that no matter what analogy I used, it was pretty simple. So let's go ahead and discuss those other levers when achieving your dream body. So the first lever is going to be discussing nutrients. Now, it's basically going to be a summary of what we discussed in the previous chart above, but the levers with our nutrition are going to be macro ratios, so making sure that we're utilizing protein at the forefront to make sure that we keep our muscle mass and build more on top of it, and then filling the rest with fats and carbs to make sure that we have the energy necessary to increase our muscle mass, as well as utilizing those fats to have proper hormone regulation. Next, deficit. When we put ourselves in a deficit, our body is forced to make up the difference by burning what we have currently stored on us. That is how weight loss occurs. Next, whole foods. Whole foods are important 80% of the time. I'm not saying that you can never have a diet soda. I'm not saying that you can never have a treat. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that when you prioritize whole foods, not only are you hitting your macronutrients or making sure that your macronutrient ratios are in check, you're also forced, because they're whole foods, to be getting your micronutrients in as well. So when you choose and prioritize whole foods, 80% of the time, 70% of the time, you are getting micronutrients and micronutrient-dense foods, nutrient-dense foods that are overall better for not just your fitness journey, but your health and wellness. Next, digestion. That is specific to every single person. How you digest an orange is going to be different to how I digest an orange, and how you digest rice is going to be different to how I digest rice. That's something that you have to learn, and I encourage you to do it now, because at the beginning of my journey, I was like, oh, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to eat less and weigh less, and I'm going to eat it all at one time. Like, I didn't think that nutrient timing mattered. I didn't think that paying attention to my digestion mattered. However, it does. So notice how you feel. When you feel abnormally tired after a meal, look at what you ate. When you feel a crash in energy, look at what you ate. When you feel anything, look at what you ate, and also look at what you drank. If you're feeling hungry, you're feeling tired, and your nutrients are in check, you could be dehydrated. That's another thing. If you're not drinking the right amount of water, if you're not properly hydrated, you're going to probably confuse that with hunger, and you're probably going to have a hard time controlling yourself and feel ravenously hungry, when in reality, you're just thirsty. Another thing with nutrition and food is your behavioral patterns and tendencies. If you struggle with binge eating, if you live in a negative environment, if you struggle with self-control, if you see a bunch of commercials where there are juicy burger patties from Wendy's, or you see loaded fries on TV, or if you are experiencing a very high-stress workday and you just want to go have a juicy, nice burger, unfortunately, there are 3 things that'll regulate our hunger cues or when we feel the desire to eat. The weakest of those 3 things is going to be your body's homeostasis, or its energy balance, i.e., the nutrients it needs to maintain what it's doing. So that is what we should pay attention to. However, it is the weakest form. The other 2 forms that are going to overpower that every single time are going to be environmental factors and behavioral patterns. And environmental factors like high stress. You'll experience high stress and feel hungry when you didn't do anything that would necessarily mean you would need an addition of nutrients in your diet. And that is why 9 times out of 10, the most stressful people tend to be overweight and carry excess body fat, because not only are they very stressed and they lean on food to cope, but also half the time they sit at a desk and they don't move ever. And then they're overweight, and then they're unhappy, and they're stressed out in their job. 9 times out of 10, they hate the fucking job. And I'm not making this up. I'm saying this because I sit on the phone with you guys and I talk to y'all, and you describe like these very, very high stress environments, and then you're like, I'm hungry all the time. And I'm like, okay, this is really hard, because you need to understand that when you experience a lot of stress, especially from work and you're sitting at a desk all the time, you're going to feel hungry. Does your body need it? No. And unfortunately, either you cut out the stress or you buckle up and you become disciplined and you do hard things, one or the other. And there's no other way about it because your body is creating that desire for food because it is also connected food as something that it uses to cope. And that and behavioral patterns of binging or maybe using food to cope can overpower your body's actual indication for being hungry based on its energy levels or the energy that it needs to perform certain tasks. That's why it's very tricky to take the intuitive eating route, especially if you're not already there. Like, I can confidently say that I can intuitively eat. However, if someone were to come to me and say, I work a very stressful job, my environment sucks, and all this has happened, I would never tell them to intuitively eat because their hunger cues are going to be so out of whack that if they were to trust them and listen to them, they would be like, what the fuck, am I just destined to be fat? No, that's not what that is. But you can't intuitively eat until number one, you understand that those two hunger cues are going to overpower the most important one, and also yourself, digestion, nutrition, and your relationship with food, and probably your relationship with yourself. Because if you have a negative relationship with the scale, with your body, with yourself, with who you are, you're going to use food to cope. Food is something that is so hard to go about because all the other things that you use to cope, that society would use to cope, maybe drugs, alcohol, avoidance, whatever it is, constantly being distracted, always being entertained because they don't want to cope or they need to be distracted so they don't have to face shit. Those can easily be cut out. You can be like, don't do drugs. I'm not going to drink alcohol. I'm not going to do this. You can't say you're going to quit food because food is necessary to also build this dream physique. So it's like a double-edged sword. I don't know if that's the right usage of that term or that phrase, but yeah, cancel the double-edged sword. I don't think I'm using that right. It's a sensitive subject because it can be something that you lean on to cope with things, stressful things, but it is also exactly what you need to be able to build and craft your dream physique. However, the foods that you choose for both of those things are, I'm going to jump to say they're going to be different. What you need to fuel and build your dream physique is going to be 70% of the time, 70 to 80% of the time, whole foods, nutrient-dense foods, protein, carbs, and fats. And usually the foods that you're going to use to cope with hard times are going to be nutrient deficient foods, majority unhealthy foods. And I'm not going to call them bad foods because in that 30% of the time when you're not eating whole foods, I think that you should 100% go enjoy your favorite things. And if those things aren't the most nutrient dense foods, that's okay because food is also meant to be enjoyed. So it's a very important relationship that you need to heal and you can't really avoid because all of us need food to live. So healing your relationship with food and looking at the psychological things is very important, especially when it comes to nutrition. Oh, sorry, guys. Because yes, looking at your physiological attributes through a literal lens is important. However, the psychological side of this journey is dependent on who you are, how you view yourself, how you view the world, your level of confidence, your insecurities, your frustration, all those things. Because yes, the science of losing weight is fairly simple to understand, but your adherence to the plan that is built off that science is based on who you are psychologically. And so 9 times out of 10, the reason why you're probably watching this video or you're maybe struggling, if it's not a lack of knowledge, it's probably some issue on the psychological side, whether it be insecurity, frustration, lack of belief in yourself, lack of confidence or insecurity, like I just said, something along those lines. So it can either be the psychological side, both, or maybe you truly just lack the knowledge. You truly just lack the knowledge and you're confident and you're disciplined or whatever. But that doesn't matter because this video will help you if you're anywhere on that spectrum. So that's kind of more about nutrients. Now we're going to next talk about activity, the 20%. So when looking at activity, the different levers you can pull for that is your training style. So the training style that I give a certain person over another is just going to be based on realistically how much time they have to lift depending on their lifestyle. If Johnny has 5 kids and works a corporate job in corporate America and is an executive at a 9 to 5, not going to ask the guy to train 5 days a week. Not going to ask the guy to train 6 days a week. I don't even think I would ask anyone to train 6 days a week. That's a lot. However, I'll probably program him 3 to 4 days a week so that it's realistic. He can go and if I were to give him some unrealistic expectation and he couldn't adhere to it, that can cause him to struggle on the psychological side because he constantly feels himself falling short of that goal. So be realistic. You don't need to overtrain, and a lot of the times people try to overtrain and undereat to make up for that lack of knowledge. If you have a good sound plan, trust that plan and train on the days when you're supposed to train and rest hard on the days when you're supposed to rest. So your training style, do it depending on your schedule. Remember that if you are training less, it has to count more. So if you're going to do an hour in the gym, or if you're going to do less amount of time, everything that you do has to count. So you can't go in there and just do jack shit. You have to be intentional. And I recommend that you are intentional with everything that you do so that you're efficient. Because why would you want to go to the gym for 2 hours because you're choosing to be less intentional? If you go to the gym and go for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, which is what I do, it's because I'm intentional with every single set and every single rep, and I push myself and I train hard. You don't need to spend hours in there. You do need to spend hours in there and do 4 sets of everything. If you're not going to push yourself, you're going to be lazy and you're just going to go through the motions. In order to make up for your lack of mental fortitude, you're going to have to give yourself more volume. Oh. Next up on the list is going to be cardio. Now, this is going to be dependent on the person. How active are they already? Do they have a desk job? If they have a desk job and they have a lot of fat to lose, they're going to get a little bit more cardio. If they want to see faster progress and faster results, they're going to get a little bit more cardio. So long as the weight doesn't stall because there's too much stress on their body, they're going to be doing cardio. And if you're going to argue and say that, oh, I don't want to do cardio for 30 or 45 minutes, cardio is not just good for fat loss, but for your overall health and your heart health. So if you're going to argue with me about walking on the treadmill for 30 minutes or going outside and hitting a certain amount of steps, you're going to argue with me about being healthier? Come on. That cardio goal can also be paired with steps and activity. You can hit a step goal instead of doing cardio, or you can pair them both together. Something that I like to mention with these levers is that there's a sweet spot for everybody. There's a certain amount of calories that you can eat and a certain amount of cardio that you can do. Some people like to eat more, so therefore they'll have to be more active. Whereas other people, especially if we're looking at this from a weight loss lens, whereas other people, they're okay with eating a little bit less so that they don't have to spend so much time doing cardio or getting steps or whatever the case may be. But in order to help melt fat off your body, you can pair cardio with increasing your activity and just hitting a certain step goal. So those are the different levers that you can look at to help melt fat loss. Your training style is important to stimulate that muscle growth because that's going to help you achieve that lean and toned look. We want to be building muscle while we're losing fat so we can achieve the dream physique and not just be a small, skinny, fat version of what we already are. When it comes to your training style specifically here, like I said, you want to make sure that you're being intentional. You want to implement progressive overload. What I do for all of my clients is we run through training phases. I tell you guys all the time, don't switch the plan. Pick a plan and follow it. Especially if you're a beginner, you can follow a training plan for up to 12 weeks. And you can monitor your progress. So if you hit a plateau or you stop progressing, so long as it's been enough time and not 2 weeks, that's how you can dictate or judge when you should be making or implementing changes. So build a split based on the amount of time that you're able to spend in the gym, whether it be 3, 4, 5 days a week, whatever, and then follow that split every single week and keep everything the same. Use the same machines. Oh my God. Sorry, guys. Use the same machines. Try to work out at the same time every single week or every single day, or, keep everything consistent so you can be able to see if you're truly growing. If you start changing things and switching things up and doing random different shit all the time, how are you going to know if you're growing if you're changing so many variables? Keep all the variables that you can the same so that then when there is a change in either more reps, more weights going up, you're able to perform the movement easier. You know it's because muscle is growing and not because you used a different bench, you used a different machine, you did dumbbell instead of cable, you went at a different time in the morning versus at night, and so one day you were less tired so you could push more weight. If you can, keep all the variables the same, just so that you can make sure you're increasing your muscle mass. So with training to promote muscle growth, keep all the variables that you can the same, and then implementing progressive overload, whether it be getting more weight up the next week, getting more reps, or being able to perform the movement with more ease than the last time. Next, let's get into all the other things, all the other levers that you can pull to make this journey or this engine efficient. First, sleep. Now, I've showed you guys before different studies on how sleep will affect weight loss, muscle growth, stress, all that kinds of stuff, but sleep is very, very important. There are so many different avenues that I can go on that can directly correlate to how a lack of sleep can make you stray from this plan, inhibit your muscle growth, inhibit your fat loss, inhibit your adherence to your nutrition. The most important thing is that not even the most important thing. A couple things with sleep. When we get a lack of sleep, we tend to have a lack of control because we're running off 5 hours of sleep. We also tend to experience more stress. Higher stress is terrible for weight loss, terrible for muscle growth, is not good for this journey in and of itself, can lead to water retention, can lead to bloating, all those different kinds of things, which can then lead for you to look down and see the scale hasn't dropped or gone up and can make you feel discouraged, even though it's not necessarily fat gain or anything like that. It can just not be good for your overall health and wellness. Another thing when we get a lack of sleep, it tends to mess with our hormone regulation. And within that hormone regulation is going to be something that's going to affect our hunger hormones, which is going to be ghrelin and leptin. Another aspect that is going to skew our hunger, that is not one that we should listen to because it's not an indicator of a need of excess nutrients, because we're not necessarily performing more activity. We're just tired, and a lack of sleep is directly correlated to an increase in the body's production of the hunger hormone ghrelin, which is going to lead you to feel more hungry when you didn't even do anything that would mean you would need more food. And that's going to lead to fat gain because you're eating in excess of nutrients simply because you did not sleep enough. Did you do more? Did you move more? No, but your body's going to tell you you're hungry and you're going to have to deal with that. And so I'd much rather get enough sleep than have to wake up hungry and exhausted, obviously. But just being cognizant and aware of that, you would want to prioritize sleep. So I'm trying to say these things to encourage you to prioritize sleep and understand that it really is important, because it's easy to brush it off and be like, oh, I don't need to get enough sleep. It doesn't matter if I'm stressed. My environment doesn't matter. My mindset doesn't matter. It's easy to just brush those things off. But if you look at those little details, they can exponentially help you grow, especially over the lifestyle change that you're going to make and not just like a 6-week shred. Right? If you're looking at improving your lifestyle, becoming more confident, becoming better, and transforming into a different person, look at all of these things, not just how you can get skinny as fast as possible. A lack of sleep is also directly correlated to poor performance in the gym, a loss of muscle mass, all those different kinds of things, which you can Google and go research about it and look at different studies that are referenced a lot in social media, and a lot of people talk about it. But if you're going to argue with me about wanting to get 5 hours of sleep or less, click out of this video, because I promise you guys, you should be wanting to get more sleep. You should prioritize getting more sleep, because not only is it better for weight loss, building your dream physique, all those different kinds of things, but also improving your overall health, the longevity of your life, your mood. You're going to feel better. You're going to think better. You're going to probably be happier. Next is stress. Stress is terrible for muscle growth and weight loss, and it also leads for you to make shitty decisions when it comes to your diet and your hunger levels and all that stuff. A plethora of things. Stress makes it harder for you to lose weight. When you have an increase in cortisol, it makes your body operate inefficiently. It can lead for you to retain weight. This can also lead to excess bloating and water retention. And I've noticed specifically for myself, when I experience a lot of stress and I don't get enough sleep, I've noticed stalls on the scale. I've noticed plateaus in progress. And I kind of have to like sit down and re-strategize and replan and make sure that all these things are in check for myself. It's easy to let it go. It's easy to be like, wow, I've been consistently getting 6 hours of sleep. No wonder I feel like shit. My workouts have been ass. I've hit a plateau on the scale. I'm not progressing. Making sure that sleep and stress, those two things go hand in hand. And a lack of sleep and an increase in stress isn't going to be good for anybody, whether you're on a fitness journey or not. And next, we're going to be looking at your environment. Surround yourself with 2 losers. You're going to be the third. Surround yourself with 2 people that binge eat and eat a bunch of junk and don't lift and don't, get themselves out of their comfort zone, don't do hard things, don't push themselves, don't want to be better, don't make themselves grow. You're going to be a third one of them. That also has to do with, your literal environment. If you're going to keep foods that that you binge on, foods that you know that you're not going to be able to resist in a moment of lacking sleep, in a moment of high stress, why would you keep that around? You don't want to set yourself up for failure. Environment can also include your romantic and platonic relationships. If you're going to be dating someone who's always stressing you out, who low-key wants to see you lose, doesn't want to see you win, doesn't want you to be better than them, and I'm throwing this out there because it's something that I've been through. Being in a toxic relationship is going to make it hard for you to not just reach this goal, but any goal. I can confidently say right now that in some of my most toxic relationships is when I struggled with binge eating the most. So I know it's hard to leave certain friendships or romantic relationships, but something I tell you guys to do all the time is hard shit, uncomfortable shit. And 9 times out of 10, the reason that we avoid things or we make our decisions are usually based on emotion, and because we don't want to feel certain things, or because we're avoiding things, or because we don't want to face uncomfortability or discomfort. It's hard to be friends with someone that's secretly rooting on your downfall, that doesn't truly support you, that doesn't want to see you win. And it's also hard to do this to succeed in any aspect of life, whether it be your fitness journey or any other goal that you're trying to reach when you're dating someone toxic or you're friends with somebody toxic. But it's also very hard to cut them off because it's uncomfortable and you have to put your foot down, and nobody really wants to feel that, and nobody likes confrontation. But the whole message that I preach on this channel is have the courage to be uncomfortable. Don't be scared to feel discomfort. Do hard things, because that is the simplest way that I can explain to you how you're going to grow, not just physically but mentally. And when you grow mentally, that growth is then translated into a physical transformation. They go hand in hand. You cannot avoid it. If you want to get results that you can keep, you need to grow mentally along with physically in this journey. Next is going to go hand in hand with environment, your mindset. And I kind of want to segue from what I was just saying about doing hard shit and having the courage to be uncomfortable. Think about every decision that you've ever made. Think about all the things that you've ever done and really think about it. Like, you worked a really long day and then you wanted to skip the gym. Why? You were tired. Okay. You just didn't want to feel tired and uncomfortable and sluggish, or you're in a relationship, but you know you're not going to marry this person and they're low-key toxic and they're draining and they're distracting you and they don't really care about your well-being and they don't want to see you grow, or they just don't align with your future. But you don't leave because breaking up with them is uncomfortable and you'll have to experience discomfort and you don't want to. Or you had a really stressful day at work and you know that you need to stick to your nutrition to get to whatever goal it is, or you need to maintain your fat loss because you're trying to, you're trying to be healthier, but you experienced a really stressful day and you're like, man, I really want to go. I think I'm just going to go have a burger tonight. Why? Because you had a stressful day and you want to use food to cope. You want to feel comfortable. You're not okay with feeling that discomfort. The mindset that you have to get this transformation into level up physically and mentally and reach other goals in your life and not just your dream physique is being okay with discomfort, being okay with feeling things that hurt, that aren't necessarily pleasant, and saying, I'm all right. I don't need a crutch. I don't need to cope. I don't need to skip. I don't need to do any of these things. Shit's gonna hurt. Life's gonna knock you on your ass. That is okay. Don't be reluctant to take opportunities or to make decisions that you know are going to push you further in life simply because they're uncomfortable. The more discomfort that you can feel and still move forward is literally gonna tell you the level of success you're going to reach. And that's why so many people don't reach their dream physique, don't reach whatever goal it is because the minute they feel discomfort, they retreat. Be able to say, wow, that hurts. Or be able to cry and be like, damn, that just broke my fucking heart. Or be able to say, damn, I just had a stressful last day. And move the fuck on and be okay and follow the plan. Fuck how you feel, fuck your mood, fuck whatever it is that you're feeling, follow the plan. Because the plan and logic and reason doesn't change because you're sad, because you're upset, because you're heartbroken, because you're stressed. You're going to feel all these things. The plan doesn't waver, doesn't change because you felt a certain thing. Make your decisions utilizing reason and logic and your 5-year goals and your 6-month goals and your 10-year plan, and not the stress you experienced today or the heartbreak you went through last week or the uncomfortability that you felt or the discomfort that you felt in a certain situation. Feel those things, take that shit on the chin, get the fuck up, and follow the plan that you know is going to get you where you want to be. I say that because 9 times out of 10, when I hop on the phone with you guys and I'm talking about all the things that we're going to run through when joining the program, I ask you where you want to be. I ask you why you're not there. And I also ask you what needs to happen for you to get there. And there's never someone who sits there and doesn't have an answer. Everyone always has an answer. And I'm like, okay, you told me what the problem is. You told me where you want to be. You told me what you need to do to get there. Why hasn't it happened? And it's because they can't face that discomfort. I can make it simple. I can lay out the path to get there. I can tell you this is exactly how it's going to feel. This is the phases that you're going to go through. This is what you're going to experience. But I cannot make it easy. I can lay it out and I can make it simple. I can make it easier. I can make your plan more efficient. But that's the whole fucking point. If it wasn't hard, everybody and their mama would have their dream physique, would have their dream job, would have all the money that they wanted, would have every single fucking goal. But it's difficult. So as much as this is based on your physiological attributes, it's also based on the psychology of building your dream physique, the psychological patterns that you have, and breaking those and instilling these new ones that we talked about for the last, 10 minutes is what's going to help you break past the, okay, I understand nutrition, okay, I understand all these things, and it's going to take you there and keep you there and then help you reach higher levels of ascension and success. All right, guys, that is every single thing that I have for y'all in this video today. I know that majority of this video was about calorie manipulation and macro ratios. However, I wanted to discuss the whole journey in and of itself because I didn't want to just give you guys the 80% and not drop the 20% because in reality, I don't think that I've ever connected all the dots and laid out everything for you. This is my toolbox of information that I utilize or apply when taking my clients through my sale method or the phases that I take them through when helping them reach that level of having their dream physique, and also the mental transformation that they go through as well. So they come out more confident and they become more athletic, stronger, they look better, they're leaner, they're more toned, and they're just overall happy with who they've become, both physically and mentally. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments down below. If you want to work with me one-to-one to do all this for you, walk you through it, handle everything in this video, I will leave the application to my program in the description of this video as well. I will also link my Instagram. You can personally message me if you have any direct questions. I hope that you do use this video to also join me on my summer shredding series, so do it along with me. I will link my most recent upload somewhere over here on the screen, as well as my profile subscription button so that you can subscribe and join me as I cut for summer and just utilize all the information that I put out there, because I hope that by me doing this, it will help jumpstart you in your fitness journey and get you started, because that's really all it takes. Just get started and keep going, and I promise you will eventually get there. And you can watch my videos and message me if you struggle or you need any help. I will see you guys in the next video. Do not forget to do hard shit, have the courage to be uncomfortable, be confident, all the shit that I say, mainly because those are the things that will directly correlate to your growth. I love y'all. I'll see y'all in the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you guys.